now, step right up and get your tickets for another moment in gaming history.
Hey guys, welcome back, or if you're new here, welcome to the channel. This is your next, or in some of your cases, first moment in gaming history, where I go into various different moments or changes in gaming that were critical or fascinating to its development. Today I'd like to talk about something that was a bit of a revolution in the arcade, became a cultural phenomenon, and introduced us to an entirely new type of gameplay. Donkey Kong. I know, we've talked about this before, particularly if you've seen my Game Mechanics series. However, the impact and influence of this game cannot be ignored no matter who you are. You see, arcades in the early 1980s had a lot of the same game types, particularly space shooters like Defender and Space Invaders. People were eager for something different. One such game was Pac-Man. That dipped into the more family-friendly, puzzle-like gameplay, showing just how big the arcade market could actually get, with bins of arcade cabinets literally getting clogged with coins to the point that people thought the games were broken. Nintendo saw this and they wanted in, and they had the money to do it with their recent success with the Game & Watch series. So, to that end, they dove in with their first arcade cabinet. Radar Scope. Said Donkey Kong, didn't you? Radar Scope was a game made by Nintendo's R&D2 team, and released in 1980. In this game, you assume the role of a Sonic spaceport starship, where you're tasked of wiping out the formations of an enemy race known as the Gamma Raiders before they destroy your space station. By reports, the game did quite well in Japan, but it didn't really grab onto the American market. Nintendo, undaunted by this, started again pulling together a new team to take some of the Radar Scope cabinets that they couldn't sell and repurpose them into something new. To that end, they pulled a young Miyamoto. Yeah, that one. At the time, Miyamoto was a young tech who had started work repairing arcade cabinets in the late 1970s, and had gone on to develop a few games, but was relatively inexperienced, so putting him in a lead developer role was a bit of a risk. To offset this a little, they also pulled in Gunpei Yokoi, who would guide Miyamoto in some of the technical design concerns. What Nintendo wanted to do was use Miyamoto's unique perspective towards game design as an asset to come up with something new that no one had really done before, which he did, coming up with the idea of a game that felt more like a comic strip come to life. This was a pretty uncommon notion in arcade games at the time. Even the notion of having characters with discrete personalities was pretty unheard of. However, those things were fundamental to what Miyamoto wanted to do. Ideally, he wanted to make a game based off Popeye and his perpetual battle with Bluto over olive oil. In fact, you can see the bones of it in the game itself. Just take Donkey Kong and put in Bluto. Replace Petunia with olive oil and the main character with Popeye. However, Nintendo was unable to actually acquire the license for Popeye at the time, so Miyamoto took inspiration from another source, King Kong. In this scenario, King Kong grabs the prettiest girl he's ever seen and ascends to the top of a construction site, only to be chased by her carpenter boyfriend. The premise was simple and able to be conveyed on the side of an arcade cabinet in such a way that even all over the noise and hustle and bustle of people, the player would know exactly what the game was about in a glance. Miyamoto would draw sketches of what he actually envisioned the stages to look like, and the programmers would develop them. Each one had a distinct look and feel, but would convey the same objective to the player: reach the top and save Paulina. These stages were adventurous at the time, and wouldn't work with most of the mechanics that were current in game design. They would need to be able to come up with something new the games really hadn't done till now. They needed to jump. That's right, this was the first game to introduce a jump mechanic. In fact, the main character was simply called Jumpman. It wasn't Mario at the time. Donkey Kong was almost ready, and none too soon. Nintendo's America Arcade division was teetering on the brink of basically bankruptcy, and resources were tight. So tight that only 3 employees had to convert all 2,000 Radar Scope units over to Donkey Kong by themselves. However, once this was done, the only problem Nintendo had is where to actually get more. This led to their first problem: manufacturing. Yeah, Nintendo's always had a problem with this. You see, they were still working with Agami Tushineki, who worked with them on the initial Radar Scope machines, and yes, I'm aware I butchered that name. My apologies. This was due to some legal loopholes with the code that left his company as the sole manufacturer. Nintendo decided to breach that contract, manufacturing 80,000 other units without his company's involvement, leaving them in a legal battle with him over the unauthorized duplication of program code, which would be settled out of court for an undisclosed amount in 1989. This wouldn't be the only legal battle that Nintendo would fight over Donkey Kong. Universal Studios would actually take a shot at Nintendo over using the likeness of King Kong, claiming the character's name and likeness were too close to their own property and easily confused, thus infringing on their own film. Nintendo's counsel at the time, a man named John Kirby, and that's no coincidence. They actually named a game after him, countered that Universal had argued in a previous case that King Kong was public domain. Winning that case proved that King Kong was public domain and free to use. The judge agreed, stating not only did they not own the rights, they knew they didn't, based off the case results in the previous litigation. During all this, Donkey Kong saw numerous sequels and influenced future games, spawning off an entire genre of game called platforming, whose influence and dominance in the video game scene can be seen even till today. There's no doubt that Donkey Kong, for all its legal troubles, has a massive impact on the video game scene and popular culture, going off not only to spawn multiple games and GeekStorian even more, but becoming a key part of pop culture. However, what do you guys think of this one? Is this a critical and key moment in gaming history for you? What was the first time you actually played Donkey Kong? Let me know in the comments. However, I'd like to take a moment to thank you so much for watching. It really means a lot to me. And if you could do me one more favor, please leave this video a like. It really helps me out. And if you haven't, consider subscribing. That also helps me out a ton as well. For now though, thank you once again, and until next time, happy gaming.